Good evening. It's Friday, February 7th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Priya Sridhar in for Maya Trabulsi. 2 new potential cases of coronavirus are being investigated in San Diego. They're among those being quarantined at MCAS Miramar, which welcomed a new plane of Americans today. The second flight to arrive this week carried 65 people. The group joins nearly 200 who arrived Wednesday. A total of 7 people, including a 4-year-old girl, are now at local hospitals for possible symptoms. The new arrivals, like those before them, will spend 2 weeks on the military base in a medical quarantine. A father and daughter are back in the Miramar Quarantine Center after spending the last 2 days at Rady Children's Hospital getting tested for the virus. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with the father.
Anxiety.
That's one word Frank Wusinski would use to describe his coronavirus ordeal. Earlier this week, Wusinski and his 3-year-old daughter left Wuhan without his wife, who is a Chinese citizen.
It's hard to put into words, but just, seeing her crying because she knew that, the baby had to leave, but at the same time not wanting her to go.
Wusinski captured the moment his wife said goodbye to their daughter Annabelle, not knowing when she'll see her again.
She had to wear masks. She couldn't even kiss her goodbye, and it was my heart breaks for her.
Wusinski was on the plane from China that landed at MCAS Miramar on Wednesday. He and other U.S. citizens were overcome with emotion when they finally touched down.
The whole plane just erupted into cheers and clapping. I fly a lot. I've never seen that happen.
Once on the ground at Miramar, he had a cough and told officials that his father-in-law in China did have the coronavirus. So as a precaution, U.S. officials moved him and Annabelle to Rady Children's Hospital to see if they had it too.
The hospital, the nurses, doctors have been great. They brought all sorts of toys for Annabelle.
After 2 days in isolation, good news came this morning.
Great news. The doctors just came in maybe 10 minutes before. They said that we don't have, the test came back negative.
Wusinski and his daughter will head back to Miramar to finish their federally mandated 14-day quarantine. Now the priority is getting his wife to the U.S. because she is now sick in China.
She can't get treatment right now. The doctor said that she likely has the virus, and then seeing her pain in not being able to be with her baby, to see her baby, for me, that's the hardest part.
Wusinski is working with U.S. officials to try and get his wife on the next plane to the United States. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The number of dead is now more than 600 and new cases are surging. Stacey Cohen tells us more about the global effort to contain the coronavirus.
Home at last. Hundreds of Americans evacuated from Wuhan, China, arrived in the United States via 2 chartered State Department flights on Friday, landing at Air Force bases in California and Texas, where passengers will now undergo a 14-day mandatory quarantine. There are now more than 31,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus worldwide, with at least 630 deaths. The majority of those are in mainland China. 2 cruise ships are quarantined due to infection risk. 11 Americans on board the Diamond Princess docked near Tokyo tested positive for the virus. One of those is Rebecca Frazier. Her husband, Kent, did not test positive.
A little bit scared. Hard to know what the future holds since I don't really feel sick right now. Is it going to get worse?
The Royal Caribbean ship Anthem of the Sea will delay its next cruise departure by 1 day following a coronavirus scare on board. 27 passengers who'd recently traveled to China were tested. 4 are under evaluation at an area hospital after a team from the CDC boarded the ship.
Whenever you have a situation where you have potential exposures, you want to make sure that if a person is exposed and is a high risk, you want to do further screening of the individual.
President Trump spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping Friday about the virus. So far, there are 12 documented cases in the United States. Public health officials believe the quarantines and enhanced screenings will help slow the spread of the virus. Stacey Cohen, KPBS News.
San Diego has settled a lawsuit challenging the city's law that limits where sex offenders can live. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the city won't enforce the law for the vast majority of people on the registry.
A San Diego ordinance bans all registered sex offenders from living near parks, schools, and other places geared towards children. In 2015, the state Supreme Court ruled such laws were ineffective and unconstitutional when applied with no regard for an individual's circumstances. A group of sex offenders sued the city in federal court in 2017, and last month the city settled. It agreed to only enforce the law against sex offenders on parole. That's about 15% of those on the registry in San Diego County. Chris Morris was the city's attorney on the case.
It gives the city that additional law enforcement tool and balances the right of sex registrants who have the right to live within the city and make sure that they have a place to live as well.
As part of the settlement, the city agreed to pay the plaintiffs' attorney's fees. Altogether, the lawsuit cost taxpayers more than $122,000. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It's the toughest sentence yet in the college admissions scandal. Douglas Hodge, a retired financial executive from Laguna Beach, will spend 9 months in prison. Hodge admits he paid bribes totaling nearly $1 million to get 4 of his kids into USC and Georgetown. Until now, the longest sentence was 6 months for Del Mar parent Toby McFarlane. This is the same scandal that brought charges against Hollywood actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin. The candidates for the hotly contested 50th Congressional District will square off in a forum tonight. That seat was held by Republican Duncan Hunter, who resigned in January after pleading guilty to a felony charge of stealing campaign funds for his personal use. All 4 candidates are set to attend. They include Democrat Amar Campanajjar and Republicans Darrell Issa, Carl DeMaio, and Brian Jones. It takes place at the Maxine Theater in Valley Center from 7 to 9 p.m. KPBS has a new resource to help you study and organize your picks for the March primary. The KPBS Voter Guide will customize your ballot to your area. From there, you can read up on the issues and candidates and save your choice to save your time while casting your vote. You can find it right now at kpbs.org.
Decisions made by the San Diego County Board of Supervisors impact every one of us. So we're taking a close look at the issues and at who's running for the 3 seats up for grabs this year. That's on the roundtable tonight at 8:30.
No official cause yet on the helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant, but the NTSB is ruling one thing out. Federal investigators say there is no evidence of engine failure. Bryant, one of his daughters, and 7 others died when their helicopter crashed into a Calabasas hillside during heavy fog last month. A complete report on the crash could take up to a year to complete. The city of San Diego is looking for a new partner to redevelop, maintain, and manage the sports area property in the Midway District. The 48-acre site is currently home to Pechanga Arena, some retail businesses, and a parking lot. Mayor Faulkner says this is a great opportunity to breathe new life into the area. The city is hoping to find someone to achieve its vision of a pedestrian and transit-oriented landmark. Affordable housing, office, retail, entertainment, and public space are all desired in any proposal. Better than expected, the nation added nearly 250,000 new jobs last month. The jobs report from January puts the number at 225,000. Analysts predicted around 150,000. The Labor Department says the unemployment rate ticked up to 3.6% due to more people actively looking for work. Now, earlier I talked about this and more with SDSU's Miro Kopik for the Friday Business Report. Hey, Miro, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Priya.
So another month of job growth. How is it capping off what was mostly a strong week for the economy and Wall Street?
Well, you know, today we had very good job numbers, 225,000 jobs added to the rolls. The big news is that the stock market had a big week through yesterday. Today the market was down about a point. But basically, a lot of things happened to give Wall Street a lot of certainty over the last week. Corporate earnings have been been on a tear. Over 60% of the Fortune or the S&P 500 have announced their earnings, and almost 75% of them have beat the expectations. And this week, China announced their reduction as part of the phase 1 trade de-escalation effort, a 50% reduction on $75 billion of goods they put on tariffs that they put on U.S. goods. The U.S. is also announcing a 50% reduction in tariffs on about $120 billion of Chinese goods. So that's all the good news. The challenge has been the coronavirus, and that's kind of what drove the market today. The concern is it is continuing to escalate in China. So there's a lot of mixed signals, and so we're going to see a lot of volatility in the market. We're going to have to get used to that for the first quarter.
So not to harp on more bad news, but it has been continued struggles in the retail sector as well. What's next for Macy's?
Yeah, Macy's, one of the bellwether department store chains, announced the closure of 125 stores. But at the same time, they're going to expand smaller store formats. The Macy's Backstage, they're going to have 7 standalone stores, and they're going to expand into 50 current Macy's locations. Now, Macy's is not alone. One of the big things in this kind of retail apocalypse is that the last few years have been horrible for retail, and then on top of it, the malls are also problematic because Macy's is really focusing on closing the poor-performing stores in second-tier malls. So it's the third-tier malls that are going to be going away. Second-tier malls have to remake themselves. The top-tier malls, here in San Diego, for example, UTC remade themselves, drives a whole different type of traffic. And even in Horton Plaza, that whole shopping center is going to reduce the amount of retail substantially to less than 50% and focus on kind of the tech space. So mall owners are trying to reimagine the entire retail experience. So we'll continue to watch this, and there's going to be a lot of news on retail in 2020.
Absolutely. I think technology is forcing everyone to evolve a little bit. And finally, I want to talk about the Just Say No to Winter campaign. What's your take on San Diego's new tourism campaign?
Just Say No to Winter campaign is a great campaign overlaid by the San Diego Regional EDC that's really targeting high-tech workers to come to San Diego. We just talked about unemployment. Well, it's 3.6% nationally. It's 2.9% in San Diego. The sectors in technology and life sciences are really struggling to bring in qualified people. So the campaign is really targeting workers in hubs like New York and Boston and Chicago to tell them, hey, San Diego's a great place that's got diversity. It's got the right kind of employment. That's very exciting. The challenge is that we had set a record number of tourists visiting San Diego in 2018 of 36 million. Last year, we kind of saw a plateau. And so we need to re-energize, and the Tourism Authority is actually increasing their budget by 25%. And their campaign is really targeted to drive this kind of tourism to San Diego, because last year as a whole, tourism to the United States fell. We saw that here in San Diego. We need to get our fair share, and I think the Tourism Authority is being smart and aggressive at trying to drive new tourists in 2020.
Yeah, we'll see if this campaign can do the trick. Well, Miro Kopik from SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing, thank you so much for your expertise as always.
Thanks, Priya.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, outrage in China after the doctor who sounded the alarm on coronavirus dies of the disease. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Antarctica may have set a record today for the warmest temperature ever for the continent. A research station on Antarctica's northern tip near Argentina measured 64.9 degrees Fahrenheit. The United Nations says it's going through an official process to confirm the temperature. If so, it would break a record set 5 years ago. The UN says the area is among the fastest warming regions on the planet. Expect a clear and sunny Saturday, but then the weather will change. We're expecting rain on Sunday. Daji Aswad has our weekend forecast.
Moonlit sky here across San Diego, dropping down to 50 degrees. We are remaining dry for tonight, but we will start to see some changes into the extended forecast. Cooling down to 45 in Borrego Springs, 38 Mount Laguna, and 44 in Oceanside. As we continue into Saturday, it remains cool at that coast. Still going to be some warmth as you head further inland across much of the southwest, and high pressure is still holding on, or at least trying to. What we will notice here as we head into late Saturday and continue through your Sunday is a more onshore flow ahead of our cold front. We'll be topping off at 66 in Oceanside, a high of 77 in Borrego Springs and 57 in Mount Laguna. If you're in San Diego, also in the upper 60s for your Saturday. So definitely a great start to the weekend. And then we get this cool down approaching us once again with a front that will bring in need for the jackets. We're talking about the chance for temperatures to drop 10 to 15 degrees cooler as this front moves to the south, and winds will also increase as well. Once again, ahead of the front, more out of the west, bringing in some of that moisture off the Pacific. But this storm system will also account for some heavier precipitation across portions of the southwest. So showers as you head into portions of Phoenix through San Diego County. And then as we head through the mountains, well, we could see some rain and snow, and those higher elevations, snow levels 2,500 to 3,000 feet. So some of those mountains are likely to see just simply snow, leading to some travel disruptions. Winds will be gusty, and that could lead to some travel disruptions as well as some potential power outages, especially in our highest peaks and out to the canyons. As far as temperatures go, we remain in the 60s for your extended forecast here at the coast. Best chance for rain will be into Sunday and Monday time frame, and really straight on Monday for the coast. Sunday, Monday here as well with that shower and rain activity for inland areas, and temperatures warm into the 70s by the midweek. We'll be watching winds ease down Sunday, but the wet weather sticks with us. Perhaps a shower Monday, and then winds finally tapering off Tuesday out to the mountains with a high of 44. And temperatures will be cooler here Monday with a high of only 59 degrees. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
It's the most common ailment in America. In fact, 30 million people in the U.S. alone suffer from osteoarthritis, a disease that causes debilitating joint pain. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani says Salk Institute scientists have discovered a potential new therapy that could reverse the disease.
At the Salk Institute in La Jolla, scientist Paloma Martinez Redondo has been studying cartilage,
which act as a cushion between the two bones. So when we have to move any joint, in this case the knee, we will have a cushion here and here that would prevent the erosion between the two bones.
Osteoarthritis causes cartilage in joints to thin out, which results in painful bone-on-bone contact. As we age, it's harder for our bodies to repair this cartilage. So Martinez Redondo and her partner investigated whether two proteins naturally produced in the body could help.
We had previous studies that were showing that these two molecules, these two proteins, could help us at some point, not only to prevent the pathology, but also to improve it, to improve the repair. But it was also lucky because we tried to put them together and they work better together.
Salk scientists tested the combined protein therapy in rats and in human cartilage cells.
This would be the knee treated with osteoarthritis. So these have arthritis, and you can see how the cartilage is not there in most of the joint, or it's broken. When we put our two proteins, we get the cartilage back. So in this case, we don't have anything broken, and we have the red color again within the knee joint, which means that this treatment not only avoided the disease to go farther, but also improved the repair of the disease.
Martinez Redondo says currently patients can only get access to therapies that make you feel better, or they require invasive surgeries.
And hopefully, if your arthritis is not really bad, you will have your layer of cartilage again for a limited amount of time, because it's going to happen the same.
She says this type of therapy aims to reverse osteoarthritis naturally. Now, the scientists plan on taking the results to human clinical trial. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
February is Black History Month, and the San Diego History Center is calling on San Diegans to help tell the stories of local African Americans. The center is hosting an event to scan photos, letters, and other documents of African Americans throughout the centuries. It's all part of a cultural heritage project.
When you bring all the history together, that brings community together, and then we learn about each other, and that really sparks more relationships, more future projects together, more future events together, And it teaches us a history lesson about who we are. And if we know who we are, we know our past, then it can help us to kind of determine our future.
The photos may be used in a new exhibit that opens in the spring. The public is invited to the scanning event tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. at the History Center in Balboa Park. A new photo exhibition opening this weekend gives us a look into daily life in Tijuana over a half-century ago. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler has a preview.
Here, for example, is a self-portrait that Harry took as part of that photographic project.
In 1964, Harry Crosby had left his job as a science teacher at La Jolla High School to pursue photography full-time when he was given a magazine assignment: photograph parts of Tijuana that went beyond the beaten tourist trail. Crosby went on to capture over 700 photographs of a city that's strikingly familiar in its lively street scenes, but still mostly foreign to modern viewers. What was a small border city has now become a large metropolis.
It's interesting, if you visit today, to see, and reflect on what you see that was there in 1964 and what has evolved and changed. These are photographs of the border crossing.
Heath Fox is the executive director of the La Jolla Historical Society, where the photos will be on display from this weekend through May.
The city has grown tremendously. The population of Tijuana in 1964 was about 235,000 people. Today, it's over 1.8 million.
The photos capture a city caught mid-transition from a tourist destination to an industrial powerhouse, with dirt roads leading to informal housing and new buildings devoted to providing social services to the city's growing population. In one photo, a street vendor reads the newspaper by lamplight, apparently unfazed by Crosby's gaze. The show also includes a companion exhibition from young photographers, with the group outside the lens. Over the summer, the student photographers went to Tijuana to document the city as it is today.
This is photojournalistic street photography that the students did in response to the way Harry had done it half a century ago.
Since their limited initial publication in the 60s, the photos have found new life in recent years. They've been embraced and displayed on both sides of the border. The photographer, now in his 90s, plans on attending the show's opening on Friday night.
I don't think he thought the photographs were really going to have a big life after that, the way they did. At the time, I think he thought, well, they'll pick the ones they want for the magazine, and that'll be the end of it. Wasn't the case, though.
Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
San Diego Opera opens Grimm's fairy tale Hansel and Gretel tomorrow. The production uses large-scale puppets to bring the opera to life. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando goes behind the scenes.
In the depths of hell, a witch did dwell.
It's not every day that an opera singer gets to bring a cannibalistic witch to life.
I lure children into the forest, and I cook them into gingerbread cakes, and then I eat them. It's delightful.
But what's not so delightful is having to wear a big puppetry rig to create a larger-than-life witch on stage.
The entire time I'm on stage, I'm basically working with a puppet while trying to sing and convey a character. So I need to dance with the puppet, walk forward in rhythm while looking to my right. Yes.
In directing Hansel and Gretel, Brenna Corner had to figure out how to make adults look like kids and create a variety of creatures and forest spirits.
And quite frankly, the best way I could figure out how to do that was puppets.
So anything that wasn't human became a puppet.
It's different in that it's not my physicality, because I'm manipulating her hands, her arms. Facially and vocally, I'm trying to do the same things that I would do if I were performing it without a puppet.
Now, if you're thinking of puppets as something you put on your hand, think again. Judd Palmer of Old Trout Puppet Workshop in Canada designed the puppets.
So we had to really blow up the notion of what a puppet is in order to successfully encompass the fusion of opera and puppetry. We wanted the whole thing to feel like it comes out of a book. The illustrations come to life like a pop-up book that comes magically into existence before your very eyes.
Ian Gunn is one of the puppeteers that's helping make that happen.
Oh yeah, I have about 6 costume changes back and forth throughout the show.
I'm operating the witch, puppeteering all of her facial expressions and characteristics along with her body movement, while an opera singer is operating her hand gestures. So we have to be in concert, in sync with one another. And that's probably one of the most demanding puppet-oriented performance things I've ever done in my life, for sure. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like I am transported inside this imagination. It's like we're doing something magical, and it's a magical character. And the only reason it's alive is because we're in there giving it our all. So it's pretty cool.
What's extraordinary to me about puppetry is that as an audience, we're like continually investing our imagination in seeing the thing that the performers want us to see.
You can see the puppeteer right there in a ridiculous outfit. They're sweating and panting from having to run across the stage. And it lets us all in on the joke in a way, but also in the kind of the dream. It makes it evident to everybody in the audience that they're going to have to invest imaginatively in this in the same way as the people on stage are.
The thing about this production is you want to come to this production with your imagination. Like that joy that you had when you were a kid and you could imagine what would happen if a stick was suddenly a giant scary monster. That's what you want to bring to this production, because that's what this production creates, is the sense of wonder and joy and mystery that's inherent in being a kid.
And inherent in a story that begins with the magical possibilities of Once Upon a Time. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. We leave you with music from Live at the Belly Up, which airs tonight at 11 on KPBS. Thanks for joining us and have a great evening.